going to record this so that we can hopefully get it up on the website for any coaches that weren't able to make it, or if people wanted to review the information, different URLs or other things that we'll be kind of discussing as well. First of all, I wanted to thank everybody for being on this webinar, the first of our series from the OHTSL that we're going to be presenting. And we are very honored and lucky to have Ian Barker, the United Soccer Coaches Director of Coaching, who will be kind of our guest speaker and doing this with me to present kind of how to be impactful during social distancing. As an overview real quick, just so you're all aware, we had a bunch of coaches. We had about 56, 57 coaches register. So I think a couple more will probably be joining from 35 different communities, which is exactly what we were hoping to do with this kind of process that we were trying to push forward with the webinar, is to be able to reach our organization as a whole across the board and provide just information, education, and opportunities for people to then go and disperse it to the players. So real quick, a quick overview is I obviously wanted to talk a little bit about the United Soccer Coaches Association, since some of you may not know it. It is formerly the NSCAA, and it was founded in 1941. It is the world's largest soccer coaches organization that serves members at every level of the game. It involves multiple different facets within it, including advocacy for multiple groups and a lot of minority groups. I was a member of the women's group for a while. A lot of different education. They have courses that are known as diplomas that you can work from a very basic grassroots level all the way up to a premier level, e-learning opportunities, as well as online resources that are available on their website. A favorite thing of mine that I've attended for a very long time is the convention. It's annual and it rotates different cities across the nation. They introduced the West Coast a couple years ago. And it will be in January every year. And if it's something that any of you coaches or directors or presidents can attend, I would highly, highly recommend it. It's also something, if you're attending for the first time, I'm normally there every year, so feel free to reach out to me and we can have a conversation before or during, and I can help because it is a lot to handle for the first time. They also offer job connection as well as networking opportunities. When I was a little bit younger, I actually was honored to be in the, I believe it was second or third 30 under 30 program that they had. And it was a wonderful networking opportunity where I got to meet other coaches in my field, as well as work with higher level coaches in that area. Ian, anything you want to kind of add on in regards to what the organization is?
Not at all. I'm happy to be here, and I'm a Midwest guy and a US youth soccer guy at root. But I understand, I have an intimate knowledge of what it's like to try to run grassroots soccer in communities. So I respect all the work you guys do, and very happy to be here.
Perfect. So a little bit quickly about Ian, since again, most of you have seen me or know me. Ian has been with the United Soccer Coaches Association since 2012. Before that, he was a collegiate coach at Macalester College and the University of Wisconsin. And during his time at UW, he was part of the 1995 NCAA National Championship squad. So he has a ring probably somewhere. He was the former director of coaching for Minnesota Youth Soccer from 1997 to 2007. And he's been a national instructor for pretty much every organization under the sun, including the United Soccer Coaches, US Soccer, and US Youth Soccer, which is how Ian and I met many, many years ago. So thank you again so much, Ian, for being on here and helping our coaches become better coaches, which will hopefully help our players become better players. So overall, what are we going to be discussing? We wanted to talk about what is impact. You as a coach, you as again, whatever role you are, president, manager, administrator, you have an opportunity to make an impact within players and the club and the organization, and honestly, the community that you're going to be working with. So what does it look like? Right now, we do not know what is going on at home for these players. And obviously, we don't know that even when we're coaching them. But how can we help? That's the question that I want all of us to be thinking about throughout this entire presentation. How can we help? How can we help the players? How can we help the parents? You're dealing with a lot of different facets. You have probably parents that are micromanaging their players that we haven't seen in a while. You might have a parent or two that's a doctor who isn't with their family, or obviously a lot of unknown in general that's going on within our players' minds. So what role can we have and what kind of an impact can we have? something that I talk about a lot in various clinics and education sessions that I've done is helping our players understand the role versus the impact player. How can we get our players to become impact players? And in this way, I want us to be thinking about the role versus the impact coach. How can we be impactful coaches within our players right now? In each of your environments and in your players' environments, you need to be thinking about what affects you and what is affecting them. And that's where we talk about what does it look like to be an impact. Work, family, schoolwork, technology, a lot of different areas that we haven't had to deal with are all mixing together. So what role can you play today to be an impact tomorrow? And then obviously down at the bottom, you could see Ian's information. Please feel free to follow him. Obviously, he was nice enough to give us his email as well. And then he is very fortunate. We'll be talking a little bit more later. Him and Vince Gansberg, who is a mentor of mine since, goodness, I was probably in high school when I met Vince. They are doing webinars daily that you can log in, and on the website, you can also see what the topic is that they're discussing. So one thing that I found that was very interesting was on the Applied Sports Psychology website, they broke down the roles of athletes, coaches, and parents, which are the three kind of groups we're going to be talking about today. So what was something that they felt was important for the athletes to be doing while they're home right now and not obviously in the environment on the field with their friends and that social working? So it's important obviously for them to be talking all of this out, to decide how they want to engage in their sport. In what way are they staying connected? A big one that I constantly talk about too, and this can relate to the coaches as well, is they say to remember your why. Make sure you understand and you know why you are doing this, why you are working hard, and remember why you love to play. And then focusing on mental and physical fitness as much as obviously touching a ball as much as they can. For the coaches, a big part they talked about is staying connected to your teams and your individual players to the best of your ability. Recognize the degrees of impact that you can have. How can you be a resource to them and help them, again, look away from what they're currently dealing with? Remaining neutral and factual. Again, we do not know what's going on at home. We don't know emotionally how all these players are handling the situation. So stay level-headed and do what you do and be who you were before all of this. And then take care of yourself. And then for the parents, be a positive role model, encourage self-care, creativity, and meaning making within the players. So when deciding how to interact with your team and your players, we talk a lot about the content. So what are you going to do? How are you going to deliver whatever you decide is going to be what you're going to deliver? It's going to talk a lot about the delivery and the methodology. The virtual experience should be a continuation of what you've been doing on the field. Same lessons as you've been teaching out on the field or in the classroom if you've been doing any of that. How can you modify and implement it into the environment that you have? And then Ian, did you want to chime in a little bit?
Yeah, the little blue addendum there was something I added to Marcy's overall slide deck, so frequency. So one of the things I'm a little bit concerned about is that we are, in some environments, perhaps not in your environments, but in some clubs, they've swamped the children with content. They swamped the parents with content. And if the kids are at home and they're still meant to be doing online school, they still have to do family and other things. Why all of a sudden have we upped the amount of communication to them threefold or fivefold? So I was talking to a colleague on Sirius Radio, Glenn Crooks, and he said that he's actually communicating with his players in the same schedule that he would be if they were outdoors. So let's say Tuesday and Thursday nights at 6 o'clock, and then Saturday afternoon games at 3. So instead of 20 points of contact, just swamping them, managing the frequency and managing the scheduling of the frequency or of the content so that it becomes as normal as possible, as opposed to all of a sudden there's a panic, there's something wrong, and we've inundated them.
Perfect. The next part is going to be a predictable plan and accountability. So how can we, again, balance the dual responsibility of being a coach, but obviously having the player as well? When we're creating these plans or whatever we're putting forward, we want to make it something predictable, something that they can potentially either do as a scheduled time, or again, based on kind of what Ian said, since they may feel inundated, something maybe they can do on their own time, or something that's going to be scheduled and organized that they can do when they feel they have the moment to do it. The next part is a plan, something that they're going to see set in place. And then obviously the accountability part, something that they can hold themselves accountable to, no different than what we would do when the players would be on the field.
And then the little blue tag is mine that was added in afterwards. I think we have to manage to our comfort level choice. So what, depending on the level of program we're at, depending on the level of commitment the athlete was prepared to make or the parents were prepared to make, we might be able to make greater demands. But if we're a grassroots program and we know, we are all coaches, so we all know that kids show up and some are extremely motivated, others have diminishing motivation. How much within all of this are you going to give them some choice to participate, and how much you're going to hold their feet to the fire? So I think it's different for every single person on the platform tonight. But I do think that managing choice intelligently is a huge part of what we need to do.
The last piece I want everybody to be thinking about is the engagement, and the part of the relationship and the bridging the gap between what is occurring in our reality and what can we give these players something to hold on to that's a sense of normalcy. And I kind of worded it as a sense of normalcy within a new normal. And I picked this little image on the side as these two things are being more connected now, the book bag and the soccer ball, than ever before, as they're now again going to have to engage the two because they're not separate. They're all happening in the same time within breaks and within schedules. So how can we connect everything together, connected to the players, connected to you as a coach, connected to the team in each other, and then how can we connect it to themselves when they were part of that team, something that was bigger than themselves?
And again, the blue is me. And I was thinking about the mission statements, vision statements of your clubs. So if part of that is community and family, then the engagement absolutely should include a parent for sure. And I think there's also risk management issues there too. So we want to include the parent. What is the purpose of the communication? So if we know, for example, that some of the kids are at higher risk, they have challenging family situations, are we just trying to touch base to see how they're doing? At the end of the day, we're a soccer club. We're not psychologists, not the primary role. We're not healthcare professionals. So what is the purpose of the outreach? What messaging? What role do we serve? Virtual is what we're kind of doing now, but can we get the kids to go and physically do something? Can we get them to go to the back garden? Can we get them to go for a walk or some exercise or do some other physical, practical things? And then I do think part of the really cool thing about engagement for our younger kids is sharing. So if they take a video of themselves playing soccer in the backyard, they share it with you and they share it with their friends. Or if they have a story, be it in a format like this where they can see each other on the screen, or be it, Instagram and text. But I do think sharing is a very powerful thing right now. So it encourages the kids to capture stories, video clips and things like that, and then you have them share them. I think that would be a really powerful direction for us at this point.
So again, just something to kind of look at as a diagram, thinking about something, and the piece of this that's again a little bit different than when we're in our own environment on the fields is the reality portion. But thinking about what is the goal that we want to accomplish within our players when we are having these engagements, these whatever we decide the interaction is going to be. What are the best options that we have in this time to accomplish those goals? And what is realistic within the constraints that these players have, thinking about the time, the technology, and the space. Again, many players are not going to have the same space that others are. Some are going to have a full backyard. Some are going to have a finished basement. Some are going to have a kitchen. Some are going to have a 1-bedroom apartment. So be thinking about how can what you're doing connect everybody, and going from that standpoint. Also, what can we do to actually help and put these into action? And I think that's the most important takeaway piece from it too, is going to be, what can we do to help these kids actually go out and work on whatever we're asking them to work on? So thinking about this as kind of a circular piece that we need to focus on. And obviously what's at the middle of it is the coaching and also the teaching. I'm thinking again about that. Right now, we're going to be focusing on something a little bit bigger than just the soccer. So I thought this was a very interesting piece. I actually messaged a handful of directors and coaches, including clubs that I've worked with, and got about 50 different responses from boys and girls ages 9 to 15. How are they feeling right now? The question that was asked, I sent it to parents, coaches, told them to not give any background, and just basically said, how are you feeling about soccer today? And these were the answers that I was given for the most part. I didn't write every single one down, but I saw a lot of these words and not so many. And it was sad. A lot of very kind of negative or blue, I would say, words that were used. There was the word love, and there was the word opportunity, which I did appreciate, but a lot was just kind of given that same idea of, it's not what we want. It's not what we desire. So it's thinking again, when we think about the players and looking at this, we're going to talk about how hopefully we can change this mindset.
The little box in the lower left was my addition to this slide. I think it's wonderful that the word opportunity came up from the kids. And I think the word love in there somewhere hopefully has a positive connotation. But of course, the other words are kind of disappointing. So I'll give you at the end of the presentation, I'll give you the web links and everything, so you don't have to write anything down. But a colleague of mine, Ben Freakley, he's a psychologist with the Toronto Blue Jays. He's previously been a psychologist with the Army Rangers, and he was also a Division I college soccer coach. And he talked a little bit about, in very broad terms, the individuals will have this threat mindset or a challenge mindset. So the kids who responded with sad, boring, hard, disappointing, lonely, they would be kids that we would deem to have a threat mindset. Whereas the kid that responded opportunity, love, is a kid that has a challenge mindset. And that might have a lot to do with their environment, what feedback they're getting from their parents, if they're looking at social media. But one of our challenges as coaches, if we're a team coach and we're interacting with our children, is to try to work out which ones are excited about this opportunity to do some self-training, this opportunity to connect with you in social media, this opportunity to take videos of themselves and share them, and which ones are feeling a little bit intimidated by the environment. Maybe they are missing the activity. And the two mindsets are not mutually exclusive. Kids may float in and back and forth. But if you're dealing with a child that has some of the volume of words on the screen, maybe your discussion is a little bit less soccer oriented, but a little bit more hopeful, looking forward to seeing you, looking forward to getting out and being together again. Whereas the challenge mindset might be a little bit more like, how many times can you train this week, and then send me a video clip. So it's an interesting little amateur psychology. I'll give you the references at the end, but it's a really interesting thought. And I've got a 25-minute webinar for you by Ben, if you're interested in that kind of idea.
So this was an image, again, that I found that I thought was very realistic to right now. And how can we make it fun again? How can we make those words become positive words that the players would be reiterating when they're thinking of soccer right now and in the current environment? So again, as I mentioned, we're going to be breaking it down into kind of 3 categories. So the first one is going to be the athlete, but we also got to remember it's the child, and thinking again about what they're dealing with right now and how we can help. So there's a lot on this, and we'll obviously break it down kind of as we go. But we wanted to talk about just a bunch of different ideas as talking to a bunch of coaches as I was kind of putting these webinars together as to what can I do to help all of you? What can I do to make things a little bit easier from the coach perspective that then you can go and translate into the players? So we wanted to give an idea because my biggest feedback that I got was resources. What can I do? Can you give me actual ideas? So Ian and I kind of tag teamed this to give you just a small amount of things that you could be doing right now or in the near future, obviously until things get back and running, to interact with your players. So to start, different competitions. Why is it good and important to do the competitions? Because that's what they're used to when we're on the field. If you think about it, whether you're using the play, practice, play methodology or you're using the 4-stage practice model, during practices, it's all about competition within themselves in the technical environment, competition within each other in the small-sided environments, or as they're just going against each other in challenges that are going to be placed on them, again, technically. And then obviously competitions within the games that are occurring. So how can we replicate that and keep that realistic sense of what's happening? In those competitions, how can you make them beneficial and how can you make them fun? So a handful of different ideas. And again, the biggest part is, as you could see at the bottom, we wrote creativity is key. So there's really no area. This is all gray because this is all gray for all of us. But as there's a bunch of stuff going around right now that a lot of people are doing that I've seen. So there's juggling competitions. And we'll talk a little bit in a minute about just some of the communities in our area and what they're doing. But you could throw out specific numbers. You could make them age group specific. How many juggles can you get? If they're a younger group, maybe you have them start in a specific working on foot or thigh or something along those lines. You could be doing touches in time. So how many touches can you get in a certain amount of time? Can you challenge the coach? Can you challenge, people send it in and what's the best player on your team, what they get? Can people try and beat that? Different ways that they could do different kinds of touches, focus on the small touches within the game that will just help them with the technical side. Obviously, for some of you who've heard from your registrars, we as an organization are doing a foot skill challenge. We're getting that up and running on the website. It should be up probably within the week. I've had about 10 to 12 communities already have coaches send in different foot skills where they demoed it and broke it down. Some of them got their kids involved. Some of them demoed them themselves. Obviously, at the end of this, I'm still looking for, I'd love to have every community send me a sample foot skill that they appreciate. So again, we can focus on one organization. But it's something you can show. We talk about demonstrating and giving the players something to see that then they can replicate. That's another opportunity. Touch sequences are something I've seen a lot of higher level coaches and trainers be doing, where it's dribbling through a set of cones and then juggling into a bin or heading the ball into the basketball hoop at the end. So it's something where it's a touch sequence that involves 2 or 3 different portions where it's 2 or 3 different kinds of touches on the ball. Then 2 kind of unique ones that have been going around is the toilet paper juggling challenge, which obviously has been worldwide among some, obviously, of the best players in the world, over to the U9 little boy or girl that's been trying it. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's just how many times can you juggle a roll of toilet paper, as in the time we're in. That's a little bit ironic. You have to get at least 10 officially before you can call it the challenge that's been going around, and then people post it. Another one is what's called the bottle flip challenge, where they're putting a little Gatorade bottle or water bottle on a soccer ball, and then they kick the soccer ball and see if they can flip it and have it land upright or down. I actually saw a video of a U9 girls team who did this recently, and the excitement on their faces when they landed it, and the parents in the video put the biggest smile on my face in weeks. So it's just another little idea that you can mash all those videos together and send them out to your entire club or a team, and it's a way for them all to see each other.
The thing about competitions, I'd like to just make a point about, if you're going to make them score tracking within the team, then know that that's what you want to do, and that there will be a kid that comes last and a kid that comes first, and that's totally fine, because there are definitely places where the right group of kids, the right mentality, that type of challenge is absolutely appropriate. But then you may have a group which is a different type of group, and you make the challenge self-referenced. So you've got to get 3 more juggles than you did yesterday, or 6 more reps. And it's really all the kids then have a challenge which is a little bit more self-referenced. Stacey Wilson and Fritz Adel, the blueprint there from me, our 2 colleagues. Stacey was a national team player, won an Olympic gold medal, played at North Carolina. Fritz is a professor or a lecturer at Butler University. They did 2 webinars for me. I'm going to give you the references at the end again, about 15 to 20 minutes long, about self-training at home, technical training and physical training. So Stacey and Fritz have some excellent content, and we'll share that with you at the end.
Awesome. Thanks, Ian. And again, to kind of tag along with what Ian's saying, is it's very true. And we talk about this when we talk about dealing with the highest level achiever on our team and the lowest, and how do we bridge that gap? The way we bridge that gap is to help them go against themselves, because themselves is the best competitor that's at the appropriate level. So you can modify any of these activities that we mentioned and make it an individual challenge that's going to be against themselves, where they could self-report. And that way they can be going against the best contender that's at the appropriate level. The next one we'll talk about is obviously YouTube and social media role. In today's society right now, where technology is becoming the forefront of communication just because of the world we're in, players are aching for things to work on and do. So it's about, can you point them in the right direction? I've seen and heard a lot of different teams and organizations who've created their own YouTube channels as a potential safe means, obviously, if parents feel comfortable posting videos of their own child, but also where you can tag and subscribe to examples like Ian's talking about, people that he's met or he's heard, where he looks up to what they're saying and feels that it's validated information. We as an OHTSL just recently created a YouTube page that we'll be again sending out in the next week. But it's something that you can look to do. And also social media is a lot of people, you know, the high name players are doing various things right now to help players underneath them and youth players, because everybody's individualized. So do your homework and continue to look and ask and find, and how can you send that information to your players and parents so they can replicate what they see.
Bar none, the best program I've seen, if you want to share it with your parents and players, coaches, is the New York Red Bull have a train at home program, which previously was something they had closed, but now it's 100% free for anybody in the country. So they've opened it up, and that's the hyperlink. And the idea is they will send the children, if they sign up, if they log in, they'll send the children at the beginning of each week a whole bunch of videos filmed from Red Bull, kind of at ankle height or knee height. They'll give them training activities at a beginner, intermediate, or advanced level. They have 4 categories: technical, juggling, freestyle, because they have these guys and girls that can do freestyle soccer, and then they have some fitness ones. And then they provide a homework sheet so the kid can track what they're doing. So that is absolutely the finest example of a free resource. If the children are into that, watching a video and then trying to replicate the video, that's the best one I've seen. So I'm sharing that with you, and 100% free right now.
Yes, definitely something to take advantage of. And again, we're recording this here. We'll have this up on the website via YouTube. So if you could be writing it down now, but obviously we'll have it so you can, run through the webinar and kind of see, everything in slow motion, pauses needed. The next thing is face-to-face, and I kind of wrote it out this way. I took this idea, as you know, we as coaches beg, borrow, and steal. I took this idea and this terminology from a colleague of mine, Jonathan Lipschitz, who was the former head coach at the University of Kentucky and now is running a club out in California. But he changed the wording because it's face-to-face, but it's obviously through, technology and not through what we'd love to have as our face-to-face interaction. But this is probably the most important thing, in my opinion, on the page for what these players are missing in not being able to see their friends and not being able to see their teammates who they have been with, for some of them, years and years, and seeing multiple times a week and at games and at tournaments. So what can we do to create that sense of face-to-face interaction if they can't actually be face-to-face? And so there's tons of different ideas of different things that you could do. Obviously, if I didn't have the screen share right now and we all had our videos up, Zoom is a good opportunity. Obviously, there have been in the past some privacy things, so you'll want to make sure that you know how to handle that. And again, I can help as needed. There's tons of other different ways to do webinars or online Google Hangouts, Google Classrooms, different things where you can have that interaction and people can see each other's faces. As I think that's just as important as hearing voices or seeing text messages or emails that are going on. Thinking about topics to discuss when you're doing it, you could send out a list ahead of time and have the players kind of come up with a couple of different ideas of things to talk about. Or you could go forward based on how you know your team, if you're going to be able to get that interaction, if you're just having kind of a call and everybody's on it. A lot of times you'll get some kids who will like to talk a lot and others who won't do a lot of talking. So by sending out something ahead of time before you would do a Zoom call, or again, whichever method you decide, that way players can, quote unquote, have a little bit of homework to have something prepared beforehand so they don't feel that they have to wing it if they're not comfortable in that environment. Another thing that's been happening a lot is Zoom practice or training sessions. And what people are doing is they're getting on a parent, or obviously if the parents are comfortable, then the players, phones or iPods, setting them up either, again, inside or outside based on the day of the weather. And the coach is running a small technical session, basically, where it's everybody has a ball and they're just doing touches. And what's been happening is one coach seems to be running the session while the other coach is on the call, looking at the video of each kid and trying to give the best of their ability some small corrections that can help in touches or what part of the foot they're using, or if they're only using one foot, or speeding it up or slowing it down, whatever it might be. And again, it's not the most ideal, but it's a way for everybody to interact. I've heard it's had some really, really good feedback, as all you see is a bunch of kids touching balls all at the same time. And it's nice to have everybody kind of doing what you'd be doing during a technical session. And one more that a lot of people are doing is teamwork or team bonding virtually, doing the same kind of thing that you would be doing if you had your team in one room, but just doing it over the internet. So doing, different topics that could be discussed. You could do goal setting for whenever you get back. You could do goal setting for right now when you're at home, individual goals, team goals, of any of the topics that we're discussing on what these players could be doing to help better themselves for when everybody can get together and get back on the field.
And those of you that are teachers, forgive me for being somewhat redundant here, but I'm assuming that some of you are not full-time teachers. There are an amazing number of completely free online applications like Kahoot, Socrative. We'll also share Flipgrid and Glide apps with you at the end of the presentation. But a Kahoot is essentially a quiz that I can generate from my PC. And so if you're in the Zoom space or some other shared platform like this, the kids can play the trivia quiz with their smart devices. So all they need to be able to do is participate in the Zoom room, and then they can answer the questions on their phone. And so one of the things that we've been doing is we've been posting little diagrams of soccer scenarios, and then all the children come in. We ask them, if you saw this scenario, would you pass left, right? Would you turn and pass backwards, or would you shoot? And then the kids can respond, and all of their responses come up on the screen. So Kahoot is an example of a free online platform that you could use in these Zoom worlds that we're living in now for an incredible amount of face-to-face and highly interactive. And if any of you are interested in those and aren't quite sure, you've got my email and my Twitter account, so you can reach out to me and I'll show you how to use them.
Perfect. Oh, we'll try and go back. So another thing, obviously, that I think is a very good time, since everyone is at home right now, is watching games. And I wrote watching games with assignments. And the reason I wrote that is just because I think a lot of times if you have a player watch a game, especially on TV, and it's not necessarily live, they won't necessarily always know what they're watching. They're just watching soccer. And while that's as important as anything, I think you have a great opportunity to give them something to think about or something to focus on while they're watching the game. As we've worked with young players before, having them watch players who've played the various positions. So as we're rotating positions in the U9, U10, U11, and even U12 age group, maybe that day you have them watch an outside mid-roll, or you have them watch a flank or a forward, whatever specifically it is, and have them kind of watch how in that game that player or those players do it. And then you could have them kind of write a little, summary of what they saw. What could they do to try and replicate that? What are their foot skills? Were their positioning? What was it? You could look at formations for some older players, the formation that the team that they're specifically watching or the opponent is playing, and what's the best way to beat that. What was the formation that they would change to? Would they stay the same? Or you can have them obviously watch the opponent and watch for strengths and weaknesses within what's going on and what do they see. But this is a great opportunity to kind of help your players watch soccer, since that's the number one thing that most coaches come back at, that our players don't watch enough. So can we help them with that?
And the couple of websites I put there for you, MLS Soccer has a really nice website, the MLS Unites website. It lists what every single club is doing in the community. So if you're interested in what Columbus and Cincinnati are doing, you can see. So that's good about it. And it also has retro games and footage. So training American children to watch American soccer, I think, is good. No disrespect to NBC and English Premier League, which I do watch more of, I admit. So MLS, the MLS website is very good. Now, this one's a little bit challenging. The second one, the iSport analysis, but I'll put it out there for you, is if you are a club, and we have some very expensive clubs. Hey, Mr. Hanford, or Mr. Ford, sorry, Graham's son. Hello. iSport analysis. So if you've got a club where the parents have paid to be in the club, and now they're wondering what value they're getting, iSport analysis is a program where for a very small amount of money, all the children can have an online platform. You send them video you've taken of them training or video you get from a game, and they can tag it up and create highlight reels and respond to questions and comments. So it is a pay access program, but it is the ability for the right group of children to really do in-depth evaluation of what they're seeing and share it with each other and make notes. It's an amazing program. And the homework version of it is the one I would check out if you have any interest in something that will cost a little bit of money, but would really raise it to another level.
Wonderful. And for those of you, again, as we're going through this, I'm kind of looking over at the chat, and we have coaches throwing out some cool ideas of different things that they've tried and done. So make sure you're keeping an eye on that, or at the end, kind of read it through, as again, this is about Ian and I kind of presenting what we know and we have, but this is also about us networking and using each other to come up with the best ideas. And that kind of leads into the bottom there. Creativity is going to be key with all of this. Everything that we're doing, you have to know what works within your team and within your organization. So, one thing, while that might work for one group, may not be effective for your group, and you may have to modify it. So be thinking about these, but again, be thinking about how can we make this work for my individual players. So I'll leave this page up for a minute or two. Again, here is just a couple of extra things that kind of I've come across as just some other extra resources you could send to players. US Soccer has created a Bend the Curve, as obviously the stay-at-home mentality, but also different activities that can be done at home. That is the link to the OHTSL page, but if you go onto YouTube and just type in OHTSL, you'll be able to come that up. Again, you'll see some of the foot skill pages that some of our communities have sent, as well as some just, good technical skill things that we've come across or people have sent that we've just tagged. And then here's kind of 4 different Instagram pages that have had daily or weekly little activities or small touches, again, with demonstrations and videos that players, if they have Instagram or the parents do and they want to share with their players, they could do. So I'll leave this up for a minute as we go through. And then obviously, Ian, any other ones that you have, we can make sure you throw in from an Instagram standpoint or anything you've seen that you feel is good and effective for players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a few more things on the last slide.
Perfect. We'll leave this up again for a minute just so people can kind of write some of these ideas down. And again, we'll have this up on the website within the next couple of days, so you'll be able to go through this, pause, write things down again, but in case people want to get things going starting tomorrow, as we're hopefully going to be impacting today. All right, and we'll kind of move on. And again, my email is going to be at the end of this. You can also email me for any of this information if you caught part of it or all of it. And again, we'll have this whole webinar up on the website. So what are other communities doing? Here's just a couple of examples. And again, I'm sure there's a ton more that I have not heard of. These are just ones that I've contacted or they've contacted me and kind of told me some ideas. So I figured this is a cool way to kind of relate it to communities that we know within our own organization. So the first one, they called it Keep Kicking KFC, and it's Kenston who actually started it. And it's basically, they have a bunch of old soccer gear that they're gonna be giving up. What they do is they have 3 different ways that you can kind of get this gear, and basically it's by doing any activity. But people can post the video to Facebook. They can email a video to the president if they feel more confident or comfortable with that, or they could post a video to their Instagram. The video ideas are given, and they could specifically work on anything that they kind of want within there. And then they have a couple different ways to get more entries in order to have their name drawn, or obviously just earn more soccer gear. Bay Village is doing a water balloon challenge. So it's going to be, the teams themselves have to get 300 juggles within the team. And obviously, I don't know if they were necessarily having them video it or if they were just reporting back. But after the team hit 300 juggles within the team, then they get to throw water balloons at the coaches when we return. So I like that idea. Hopefully it'll be warm enough for them to be able to do that, as obviously this week we're still in the 40s. Shaker is doing a Stay on the Ball challenge where each week, I believe, maybe every couple of days, the director of coaching has been emailing out to the entire organization different YouTube videos that they're kind of challenging their players to work on to stay on the ball. He's sending it every 2 to 3 days. And it basically breaks it down. It's a YouTube clip that they found. And then he's also been adding extra things, specific age group challenges and development, kind of playing to Ian's standpoint of, you know, U9s are focusing on this amount of juggles, U10s, U11s, and so on. So that's kind of what Shaker's been doing. Both Solon, the boys and girls, have been doing various training videos. The boys, director of coaching, as well as the high school coach, just created a couple of more. He actually even sent out a blooper video where he and the ball did not see eye to eye. And I'm sure it got a couple of laughs. And then obviously individual team challenges have been happening as well. But it's nice when you have the connection between your high school coach and your organization. And another idea with those foot skill videos, and even some of the videos we're doing, is can you have alumni who are in high school now be a part of it? As they're all home and they may want to give back. I know with Solon, the girls have been starting to have some of the high school girls create videos in their old Solon Lightning jerseys. And then they're going to be submitting those and putting those up so that the young kids could see what they aspire to become. And then Parma has been doing the team Zoom meetings, and I've heard that they've been going extremely well. The girls all want to talk and the boys all want to talk at the same time, so it's about balancing that. But again, it's about getting them excited and smiling when they see each other's faces.
And then the couple of things that I put in at the bottom there, the toilet roll challenge we've discussed. There's some fantastic videos of really good juggling, and then people trying to juggle and stubbing their toe on the side of the door. So some funny ones. One of the things that occurred to me would be a really powerful thing for a club, especially a lot of the clubs, perhaps not in your league as much, but some of these ones that are a little economies in of their own right. If the parents are comfortable, the kids offer to do grocery runs for people in the community, people that can't get out, older people, people that are sick. And so here is an excuse to put on our game jerseys, take the shopping list, go to the store with my mum and dad, purchase the groceries for the neighbors or people, and then take a photo in my game jersey. So there's a reason to put the game jersey on and be seen in public, albeit under the direction of your parents. So I thought that was kind of a nice one. And then if you've got a group that's mature enough and you can create the environment that we're in tonight for them, take it in turns for a player to lead 10 minutes of the meeting. So he or she comes up with a theme. Maybe it's a fancy dress or a favorite uniform or a topic. But I think if we are comfortable as adults, that we can turn the messaging and the environment a little bit more over to the kids, as we would in the training environment when we let them do their huddles and things. I think that would be a really nice touch. So I like the player-led meetings with themes if it's appropriate.
And to go along with that, and again, whether it's player-led or coach-led, get them, for especially a lot of these kids, the cheers that they have before they get on the field as part of it. Have them end the conversation or start the conversation with their cheer. That will definitely put a big smile on their face when they could be as loud as they want on the phone. So moving on, we're going to move on to the coach and kind of talk about different ways that you can continue to be impactful within yourself as the coach. So areas of impact for the coaches, basically, when you are coaching in the games or in the practices, you are naturally developing and bettering yourself through interacting through soccer with your players. So now that you're not in that environment, how can you continue to better yourself and grow as a coach, which will then hopefully impact your players? So we've obviously listed a handful of different ideas of things that will hopefully help. And you being on this webinar right now is already a huge step in the direction, just because we want to better ourselves. We want to make ourselves be as much of a resource for these players right now as we can. And eventually when we get back to that environment, hopefully the touch hasn't been lost, both socially and obviously from a soccer standpoint. So to go through a couple of these right now, US Soccer has some grassroots modules that are obviously free, and online courses are free. They have the new play, practice, play methodology in the grassroots licenses, which next week, I believe on Sunday, we have our next webinar with Janae Bukowski, who will be helping us out as the guest speaker. And we'll be going over a little bit more in-depth overview of the play, practice, play methodology. But the intro grassroots module is free, and the online courses, again, are reasonable. And obviously through the OHTSL Coach Education Reimbursement Fund, each organization or each community, remember, has a certain number of eligible coaches that can get reimbursed for US Soccer courses, and this includes online courses. So just check with your president or DOC or whoever's going to be running your allotment and make sure you have them available, and then take advantage of this opportunity. It's a really great way to kind of learn a new state of running practices if you haven't been to any of the grassroots models before, and it's proven to be extremely effective, as it's mostly about playing and being in a realistic game environment as much as possible. It also gets away from the when are we going to scrimmage question, which we all get asked. The next one, Ian, I'll kind of let you talk about that one a little bit since it's the United Soccer Coaches.
So my group has opened up complimentary membership, and is the URL there. If a coach goes in, I would highly recommend this for even your most grassroots coaches. There's about $500 to $600 worth of e-learning courses, which are completely free right now. The best one, I think, is Foundations, which is about coaching young guys, but we have things about countering sexual assault, heading safety awareness, diversity, and then we have definitely the X's and O's. So the e-learning suite is quite good. If the coach goes through it, he'll
Ian, I think I lost you. I'm not sure if anybody else can hear him.
I got kicked out, but I got muted. So anyway, sorry. So there's the e-learning. The online resource library is about 1,300 pieces of lesson plans, articles, video. And then we also push the coach a newsletter twice a week with coaching content on it, one of which is like a little 10-minute lesson plan how-to called the Give and Go that Mr. Heinig asked me about. Right now, this is kind of where people are going. They're giving a lot of stuff away complimentary. My company believes that in time it'll get some loyalty. My belief is that most of your coaches don't need to be members of my association, but at least for this time they can be. and then a couple may sign up, and that's great. But right now, it's complimentary because it just seems like the right time to give back to communities.
Wonderful. Yeah. And please take full advantage of these opportunities. And again, send them to your coaches. We have a lot of the directors and presidents on this webinar, which is wonderful for the organizations. So make sure that information is getting delegated down to all of your coaches, as if we keep it within ourselves at the highest level, it's not going to benefit everybody that we need it to. The last thing that obviously we wrote down is the OHTSL webinars, which right now we have this one and then 2 more scheduled, and we may be going into May with more. And other organizational webinars, which again, I listed just a handful of other organizations out there that are doing different things. US Youth Soccer has a specific organization for each state. And some states are broken up into East-West or North-South. So you can kind of go through and see what they're all doing as they're posting various different resources, as well as obviously US Club, US Soccer, and the United Soccer Coaches are just 3 other organizations that are, again, have resources. Another idea also is through the OHTSL. Any of you as directors or presidents or even coaches, I am very available and willing if you wanted to host kind of a Zoom webinar about any specific topic for your specific community or club. I would be happy to host it, or I can do kind of what we're doing with Ian right now, where you as the president or director can run it and I can kind of help out and just kind of be an option as another person for resource. But I've had a couple of communities who've reached out that we're getting those scheduled on the calendar, but that's something that please let me know. I would be happy to do, and we can focus on any topic that you think would benefit your organization. So here again is a handful of resources for coaches. I'll just leave this up. Again, Ian, if you want to kind of talk about the daily webinars, maybe a little bit more in detail that you're going to be doing. But yeah, you can see just here's a handful of different things that are out there right now for you to take advantage of.
So we created a resource page for COVID, some health ideas. We also added in there things about the new CARE Act. So if you're a club that maybe needs to apply for payroll protection or any of those things, there's some resources on that first web link. The second web link are webinars that I do at noon and 4 o'clock your time every day for 15-20 minutes. We've done about 30 of them so far. They're all archived on that web link. And the 4 in blue I'm just highlighting. So Ben was the mental skills, Fritz and Stacy were training at home, and Dave Jervis is the guy from Red Bulls. But there are 30 of them. So if you're interested in technologies like Flipgrid and Glide apps, I did one today on coaching tactics, which was X's and O's. But these are just 15 to 25 minute webinars. They're live, again, at noon and 4, twice daily, 5 times a week. And then they're all archived, so you don't have to go in live. You can just go pick through them. But we've just come up with a potpourri of, we think, interesting stuff that maybe applies to a college coach. We had a really interesting one about the debate between high school and club soccer. So they're just free resources, and I spend most of my life in this environment. So I maybe have a face for radio, but no, apparently I've got a face for Zoom.
All right, and again, these will be up on the webinar once we post that in the next couple days, but you could see mostly the UnitedSoccerCoaches.org. You can find all that stuff on there. The New York Red Bulls website, and then obviously US Soccer and US Youth Soccer have a couple as well. So the last group we're going to kind of discuss, and this one's a little bit shorter and sweeter, and I thought y'all would appreciate that bottom right picture, as we've seen that more and more during the rain experience. However, I will say I have sat in one of those, and they are dry proof, so it's something to consider with it. But how can we engage our parents within this environment, as obviously they're the group that continues to want to be involved in some capacity, especially when we've been outdoors. They want to have a say in some way. So what can we do to keep them involved? The interesting part that I found right now, from talking again to a lot of coaches all over the nation actually, is you have a little bit of a dichotomy of parents compared to when we're out on the field and everybody's players are involved and they're on the team. Now that it's a little bit more individualized. You have some parents that want to still be extremely actively involved and kind of know the plan and know what's going on and know what role you're taking. But you have other parents that feel that now they can kind of break away from it, whether they have a lot of other things going on their plate with dealing with multiple kids or work or whatever else is going on. But also some of them find that now it's an opportunity to not have to drive their players all over the place and be a chauffeur. They can now let the players do things autonomously on their own. So you have to kind of figure out the balance as to what is your parent selection look like within your team and organization. But three kind of words again that jumped out is most parents, they want to feel that they're supported and they want to be supported. And at the same time, we need them right now to be supportive. They have to help us within what we're doing with these players. As again, for a lot of our younger players, there are means to communication. And even with our older players, there are means for validation for communication through any of the opportunities that we've discussed. So it's about how can we support them and how can they support us in the goals that we want to accomplish. How can we keep them informed? And again, by doing that is any of the stuff that we've talked about, by planning, making things predictable, can you send out a message about what you're going to be doing or how you plan to attack it and what you're going to be executing so they know what's coming? Talk about the ideas. You can also get feedback if you feel that's a way that might work. What is something that they feel might help the players in today? And then how can we keep them engaged in what we're doing? What role can the parents play in all of this? And it's basically, again, how can we help them hold players accountable? Can they be a part of what we're doing? Do we not want them a part of what they're doing? Another idea is what resources do your parents have that can help? We have a couple that, some of the parents might not have Zoom, but maybe, or maybe the coach doesn't, but the parent does, and they can open it up more, or they have something else that might be effective or help in this time of what's going on. So take advantage of what your parents can do, but also, again, know what role you want them to play and be thinking about it. The link at the bottom is soccerparenting.com. It's an organization that talks about how to be a good soccer parent and just kind of goes through a ton of different ideas. The lady who's in charge of it, Sky Eddie Bruce is her name. She was a former national team player. She speaks at all of the conventions that Ian's organization throws on. And her talks are very interesting as it's from the view of the parent, as obviously she's a parent as well. But this is just something to pass along to parents if you want, as something they can kind of read, or you could pull different articles to potentially send to them to keep supporting what you plan to do with your team and your club. So as we're kind of coming to a conclusion here, and then obviously what we could do is we can kind of open up for questions a little bit at the end, is what is your plan to have a great impact as a coach? And I kind of put those images on the bottom because, again, coaching as the role that we signed up for when our year even began, let alone the role that we played, is not what it looks like today. Coaching is very different. So what can we do to have that impact that we want within our teams and our players? So I'm a big quote person, and a good coach can change a game. A great coach can change a life, by obviously the respected John Wooden. And I think that's a really good kind of takeaway from this, because right now we're about the game of soccer, but we're not about the game on the field. We're about a different kind of game that we've got to be able to balance within these players. And then I pulled a bunch of different pictures, and you may see your team here, you may not. But there's a constant between all of these pictures, and these are all teams within our organization at various games, winning tournaments, just different things I found, just some rec organizations that are still through US Club. They're all smiling, and they're all happy, and they're all excited to be a part of their team, to be on the field, to wear their jersey, to wear their community. And this is what we want to try and replicate in this time of just uncertainty within everyone, is can we get these smiles, this excitement, this joy back on their faces? So we'll open it up. Obviously, Ian, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think hopefully there's, for an hour's worth of commitment on everybody's part, there's a couple of nuggets in there that might be useful. I think that sharing your best practices with each other and potentially back with Marcy is critical. I don't think we're in a situation where there are experts anymore giving information top down. I think everybody has to be an expert in their environment and speak to their environment and share the best practices.
So anybody who has any questions, you can obviously feel free to, hopefully we're not going to all talk amongst each other. You could type them in the thing, and Ian's available for hopefully a couple more minutes to answer any questions, or obviously I'm here, or you can unmute and hopefully we'll go. But does anybody have any questions, comments? Is there any ideas that you've been doing within your own organization that have been effective or that you'd like to share? Quietest
There
group
is a
of
question
coaches.
in the chat box, Marcy, from the question is about the education reimbursement that you guys offer.
Yes. So with that, what we've done obviously right now is most of the courses that have been reimbursed have been U.S. soccer ones because of the allotment. We do up to $150 for going toward the D license. However, if it's another thing, I'd be curious to hear kind of what other courses people have been doing. Obviously, there are the United Soccer Coaches ones as well. But you can always email me what course you've been doing. And then all you need is the information is on the OHTSL website under coaching, under coach education reimbursement. There's a form you have to fill out basically to say just who is going to get reimbursed. Is it the coach themselves or is it the organization? And then you send me the receipt and the license. And if you send all three of those, we get that check back out to whoever that person that it's allotted to within normally a week or two. Any other questions, comments?
Can you hear me, Marcy?
Yes.
Well, can everybody hear me then, or just you?
I can hear you.
We can hear you, Paul.
Okay. I have a question, and my apologies if I pronounce his last name incorrectly. Dr. Pete Zupfi? I read an article from him today. He's a doctor, a medical doctor, and he's also the chair of the United States Youth Soccer. And he wrote down 11 points that we have to look at once we go into the soccer mode again. Is that okay if I ask a question about that? So hopefully we can leave this period behind us and go forward. And one of the things he said, and I'll just mention a few of them, was when we start up, we should practice in groups of not larger than 10 players. There should be sanitizers at each and every practice, no contact, no spitting on the field, no snacks, and finally, disinfect the balls and the pennies during practice, it said. So in all reality, how do you think we as coaches have to deal with that? Because that is a lot, I believe, we're asking. I'm not saying these are incorrect points, definitely not. But that is a lot that we as parents and kids and even coaches have to deal with. How do you see that in reality? This is a question for anybody.
My opinion is it's not feasible.
What was that, Ian? I couldn't hear it.
My opinion is it's not feasible.
No.
It's a best case scenario, and it may be something to aspire to, but I think if that is something that you implement, there's hardly any point in going outside. And I think you also open up yourself to the potential criticism of parents, and reasonably so, because if the parents have read that information and you're not intimately sanitizing every scrimmage vest or every soccer ball or one kid spits, it just gets ridiculous. I have total respect, and I'd rather err on the side of caution. So I might actually withhold going outside for a couple of weeks until we can find it better. But that list of things I think would make training untenable in most people's case.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it's going to be a situation that in all reality is not manageable. It even said disinfect the soccer balls during practice. But it's interesting, and I respect his vision, but in all reality, it could be very different. But, thanks for your comment. Would anybody else have a comment on that? Marcy?
I think, Paul, honestly, it's gonna boil down a little bit to obviously just where we stand with the guidelines that are given to us from the very top trickling all the way down as to what's gonna even be allowed and when. And then obviously, I think, as Ian said, we have to make sure that once we all decide, we get the okay from the top and then the next level and the next level, all the way trickle down to the individual teams and the individual players and all of that that's gonna be occurring, that we can get something out of what we're doing. And obviously keeping the game at the forefront and finding a way to do it. And I agree with with what Ian said is that that's not going to be feasible. As we're going back outside, we have a role and a job that we have to do as well with, running a practice, no matter what it looks like, and everything like that. So I think if we're, focusing on doing each of those individual points, we're not going to be doing something that anybody's going to be enjoying. But I think, again, we're at such a standstill right now until we know the direction that we're all going to be going. As we in Ohio are very different than Ian is in Kansas. And it's just, we don't know how it's going to look statewide. We don't know how it's going to look nationally. And so that's where hopefully right now we can use the opportunity that we have through this technology, through these ideas, some of which that we presented, some of which that I know you guys have been posting. And Paul, your stuff has been wonderful. I hope that we can at least start to chip away at that barrier that's occurring, and we can make it a little bit more seamless once the world opens up again.
Right. And I've also another question, if I may, also related to the near future. If any of the other clubs or any of the coaches that are on this webinar right now, has anybody thought about potentially the tryouts being canceled? A lot of the clubs are going to do tryouts late May, maybe early June. Let's say we can't go onto the soccer field until August 1st, the fall season. Has anybody thought about that? How you would manage tryouts or not being able to do tryouts?
Well, the one thing I could tell you from the league standpoint is I know the conversation has, again, just started, as it's so tentative and everything that's going on, to push back declarations for fall, to give people more time to try and do the tryouts. But obviously, again, it's just going to depend on how does a fall even look? Do we even have a fall? Where are we come the summer? And I think that's something I know that some organizations have been just communicating with their parents that we're in a holding pattern. Here's what we have scheduled. It's extremely tentative and likely to change, but know that we are going to be as transparent as we can. As things are moving, we'll be moving with them, and we'll be communicating what's going on as it's occurring. And this is where, again, you'd have to assume that a lot of parents and kids are not going to be going on the scheduled vacations that they normally would be this summer. So people might be more available. Who knows what camps are going to look like? I know a lot of collegiate camps have already canceled because they are expecting they're not going to be able to run them with the social distancing and the amount of people that can be together. So what I would say again is I'm not sure how you're going to be able to look at what the tryout's going to look like just yet, but I think letting your parents know that you're working on it, you're thinking about it. And then something I know that I've been promoting within, directors and presidents who've been calling me is get on calls with your boards right now and have a plan ready to roll out in 24 to 48 hours. So the minute that you get that okay, whenever it is, whatever it is. And I know US Soccer, I was on a call with them about a week ago, and they talked about they'll have a 6-week window before they're gonna, for coaching education, this was, they're gonna let us know, and then we'll have 6 weeks to start to schedule courses before they're gonna open that up. I would assume things might be on that. It's not gonna be a tomorrow situation, but I know I've been telling organizations, be ready, and you be ready to go as soon as that window opens up, that we can run with it.
Paul, I'll make a last group contribution, and then I will not make any more group contributions this evening, but people are welcome to reach out. I recently tried to get the head of ECNL/US Club to meet with the very head of USYS to talk about maybe setting common return dates at US Youth and US Club in this time to help all of the different people. Because all around the world, there are civil wars, there are political fights, the Colombian rebels against the Colombian government. They're putting down their guns and their hatreds because they want to get through COVID. And maybe youth soccer could do that too in America. And so I put a clip up there for Virginia. In Virginia, a group of the clubs got together and they made an agreement not to issue refunds until a certain point of time, not out of greed, but so that they stop trying to compete with each other. So I think your question is really intelligent. I'm sure nobody on the call is thinking about this right now. But if we get our tryouts in just before the other clubs, we'll get all the best players. And that is something that maybe this is a time when the league takes a direction or clubs take a direction, and you agree on a best community policy that keeps all of the clubs viable, and you return in similar health than taking, because there will be, we know there are people, we know people are scamming people and people are inventing drugs that don't really work. I mean, that's the nature of this. But we're coaching children in a youth sport environment, a community environment. So I would hope the more you guys, and tremendous to have 50 of you on the call today, get on the same page, the better. There endeth the sermon. Sorry.
No, absolutely. Wonderful. Well, again, if any of you have any questions or comments, or again, ideas or anything that I can help with, or Ian can help with, we have our emails obviously up there. You all have my email, doc@ohtsl.com. Please feel free to reach out with anything right now, as we're all, as Ian said, we're all in the same boat. We're all trying to do the same things for a bigger cause, and that's to help these players kind of deal with the situation and use soccer as a vehicle for joy and excitement. Hopefully you, again, took away something small. Ian, thank you so much for joining us in our league here in Ohio. Everything you've said has been wonderful, and I'm sure we'll be taking it and using it, hopefully starting tomorrow. But otherwise, please stay safe, and hopefully we'll see some of you on Sunday at our next webinar. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Marcy. Great work.
Great stuff.
Good night.